Laudetur Jesus Christus, Vatican and World News.
Today, March 29th, is Monday in Holy Week. And these are today's headlines. Speaking to the Pontifical Mexican College, Pope Francis calls on priests to conform themselves to Jesus. UNICEF warns of grave human rights violations against children in Myanmar. And Greece is making progress on new facilities for migrants arriving on the island of Lesbos. In the Vatican, I'm Christopher Wells. Our top story today, Pope Francis tells the Pontifical Mexican College in Rome that the challenges of today require priests to conform themselves to the Lord and to the gaze of love with which He contemplates us. The Pope highlighted tenderness, reconciliation, and fraternity as essential elements to help us tackle the challenges of today. Father Benedict Mayaki has more.
Pope Francis on Monday met with priests and students from the Pontifical Mexican College in Rome. Addressing them, the Pope recalled the encounters he had during his apostolic visit to Mexico in 2016, which the Pope said are renewed every year with the celebration of the solemnity of Our Lady of Guadalupe in the Vatican Basilica. The Holy Father also acknowledged the challenges for the evangelization of Mexico and the entire American continent amid the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The Pope said that in light of the numerous challenges, today's problems require that priests conform themselves to the Lord and the gaze of love with which He contemplates us. He added that by conforming our gaze to the Lord's, our gaze is transformed into a gaze of tenderness, reconciliation, and fraternity. Expanding on these three ideas, the Pope noted that we need to have the gaze of tenderness with which God sees the problems that afflict society. In this regard, he said that the Virgin Mary serves as an example, reflecting the tender love of God and welcoming everyone without distinction through her motherly tenderness. He further noted that an even deeper configuration with the Lord awakens in every priest an authentic compassion both for the sheep entrusted to him and for those who have gone astray. The Pope went on to stress the importance of reconciliation in the face of social difficulties, enormous differences, and corruption. He said that reconciliation will make us capable of weaving together the different threads that have been weakened or cut in the multicolored fabric of cultures that make up the social and religious fabric of the nation. As regards fraternity, the Pope said that our present time urges us to have a fraternal outlook. It is for this reason that together with Christ, we must be capable of having a vision of the whole and of unity, which impels us to create fraternity and allows us to highlight the points of connection and interaction in the heart of cultures and the ecclesial community. He also added that the vision of fraternity facilitates communion and fraternal participation that guides the faithful to be respectful of our common home and to become builders of a new world in collaboration with people of goodwill. I'm Father Benedict Mayaki.
In Mexico, the government has radically amended and corrected its pandemic death toll, with the latest figures placing the nation as the second deadliest place on earth for COVID-19. James Blears reports on what many had already suspected.
Drastically revised Mexican government statistics estimate that the death toll is more than 60% higher than what they'd previously claimed was the official number. That means that so far, in excess of 321,000 people in Mexico have died from COVID-19, which is more than Brazil and only second to the United States, where 500,000 people have died. Both the US and Brazilian populations are more than 3 times the size of Mexico, which per citizen is now in first place. This more accurate and truly ghastly sum is reached by checking death certificates and taking into consideration that the mortality rate is 417,000 higher than it would normally be during a year. But Mexico's Ministry of Health concedes that the true numbers could be way higher. National autonomous university studies say it could could be already in the millions. The situation is likely to worsen considerably because of Holy Week, when huge crowds traditionally gather in major cities. So far, Mexico's inoculated 6 million elderly people, but its overall population is 126 million people. More than 25 million of its population lives in Mexico City, the federal district, and the state of Mexico, a frighteningly dense concentration within a relatively small conurbation. For Vatican Radio, James Blair's reporting.
Staying with Latin America, Pope Francis has expressed his closeness to the people of Panama, especially to healthcare workers who have died in their service to those affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. In a message signed by Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Holy Father implored the Lord to sustain all those institutions that are working to bring comfort to those affected by the emergency, and he entrusted all those who have died to the infinite mercy of God and to the maternal intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary. The Pope's message was read by Archbishop José Ulloa of Panama during the occasion held on 24th of March in recognition of the service of what were called Heroes of Health. Elsewhere in world news, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, has released a statement warning of grave violations being perpetrated on children in Myanmar. UNICEF's executive director, Henrietta Fore, notes in a statement that since the military seized power in February, at least 35 children have been killed. Francesca Merlo tells us more.
An 11-year-old boy, an 11-year-old girl, 2 13-year-old boys, a 13-year-old girl, 3 16-year-old boys and 2 17-year-old boys, all reportedly shot and killed. A 1-year-old baby girl gravely injured after being struck in the eye with a rubber bullet. These were the latest child casualties on the bloodiest day in Myanmar since the military takeover on the 1st of February. In a statement released by UNICEF, Executive Director Henrietta Fore warns of the realities children are facing in Myanmar. Mass protests have been taking place across the country since the military seized control on the 1st of February. Elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi and members of her National League for Democracy party are among those detained. At the same time, dozens of protesters have been killed. The UNICEF report notes that in less than 2 months, at least 35 children have been killed, with countless others seriously injured. At the same time, almost 1,000 children and young people reported have been arbitrarily detained by security forces across the country. Millions of children and young people have been directly or indirectly exposed to traumatizing scenes of violence, threatening their mental health and emotional well-being. Henrietta Fore then goes on to stress that she is appalled by the indiscriminate killing, including of children, taking place in Myanmar, and by the failure of security forces to exercise restraint and ensure children's safety. Quoting UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, she notes that those responsible for these actions, which undoubtedly constitute egregious child rights violations, must be held accountable. Henrietta Fore goes on to note that security forces have a responsibility and must immediately refrain from perpetrating abuses of child rights and ensure the security and safety of children at all times. Security forces should cease the occupation of education facilities. They must also protect all essential workers, including health workers and teachers, providing vital services for children and families, she says. Concluding her statement, Henrietta Fore stresses that we must not let down the children of Myanmar at this critical time when their lives, well-being and future are at stake. And finally, she assures we will always stand firmly by their side. I'm Francesca Merlo.
Meanwhile, the European Union's Commissioner for Home Affairs is visiting the Greek islands of Lesbos and Samos on Monday to assess progress made by Greek authorities in building new permanent facilities to house arriving migrants. Linda Bordoni has the latest on that story.
In September last year, 3 separate fires destroyed 80% of the largest refugee camp in Europe, the Moria Reception and Identification Centre, located on the Greek island of Lesbos. The fire displaced over 12,600 migrants and refugees and revealed serious shortcomings in the EU's migration policy. Pope Francis, who visited the migrants in Lesbos in 2016, has repeatedly called on the EU to enact new policies that welcome, protect, promote and integrate migrants, respecting their inherent human dignity, as have EU bishops and humanitarian aid agencies. Ylva Johansson, the EU's Commissioner for Home Affairs, travels on Monday to Lesbos and to nearby Samos, accompanied by the Greek Minister for Migration. The Aegean Islands represent a crucial passage for migrants from Afghanistan, the Middle East and Sub-Saharan Africa, attempting to enter Europe, and the Greek government has been struggling to accommodate them. Johansson, who is expected to announce funding totalling €250 million for the new camps, has said that the new centres are expected to be up and running before the end of the year. She's also added that they would not be closed facilities. But this contradicts statements made by the Greek government, which has said that migrants staying in these camps will not be able to move freely. After the fire at the Moria refugee camp, Johansson revealed a proposal for a new pact on migration and asylum, with the promise that the EU should have no more Morias. The Commissioner acknowledged the failure of the European Union's approach to migration and asylum and set out to establish more effective policies to address irregular migration to the bloc. Yet, while the new Pact of Migration and Asylum aims to address irregular migration through better management of external borders and stronger international partnerships, concern has been voiced for its approach to stricter return policies that analysts say risk pushing asylum seekers towards riskier and less controlled migration routes to Europe, putting lives at risk and increasing criminal activities. I'm Linda Bordoni.
For decades, the Caption Day Centre in Dublin has been helping the needy of the city in the form of meals and food parcels, as well as medical support. In 2018, Pope Francis visited the centre, greeting staff, volunteers, and those in need during his apostolic visit to Ireland for the World Meeting of Families. The centre's founder, Brother Kevin Crowley, told Lydia O'Kane recently that they've seen a significant increase in people turning to the centre for support as Ireland deals with the ongoing coronavirus emergency.
Now, what I am experiencing, the number of people that have lost their jobs and the number of people that are coming here to our centre has increased immensely, even though that we can't have them into the centre because of the restrictions. So what we are doing at the moment, every morning we give out takeaway breakfast, and we'd have anything from 200 to 250 people for that, and that would be families. And then in the afternoon we give out takeaway dinners, and most days we'd have anything from 750 to maybe 800, some days maybe 900. And that's even a huge increase. And it's not just people who are homeless or people on the streets. It is people who are finding it so difficult to make ends meet. There are people who have lost their jobs. There are people who have difficulty trying to put food on the table for their families. And those are the people that we are really concerned about. And it's so sad, and it's really very sad to see so many people coming here, and especially mothers with children. That has got huge as well. But the whole thing, it has brought an atmosphere of, shall I say, like complete isolation in the sense that people are afraid to go out. Elderly people are afraid. They're afraid to have people into their homes. People are depressed. People have great difficulty in coping with the situation.
And thank you to Father Kevin Crowley for that story about Dublin. That brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. Many thanks to our producers in studio. In the Vatican, I'm Christopher Wells.